What's up, guys? I'm coming at you from the Paramount backlot with a new segment that I wanted to do, and I haven't come up with a name for it yet. I think it's going to be called like TV Talk, or like cool things about TV, or how the TV business works, or I don't know what it's called. It's just all about TV. Let's get going. So basically what I want to do is I want to take you guys through the TV business from beginning to end. For my day job, I'm fortunate enough that I work on the show Timeless here in the Paramount backlot. I actually created a bullet point list of what I wanted to talk about. I think this is going to make it a little bit easier. Yeah, so what I want to do is I'm literally going to do this series where I take you guys through everything ever about making a TV show, which hopefully for some of you guys out there that want to get into the TV business will be like a helpful primer. So before we even get into the production side of things and what I do working on television shows, it's important to talk about how you get a television show off the ground, like made. So it starts with the pitch. Before you even write a script, believe it or not, you have to have a pitch. You have to have an idea, and you're going to pitch it, and you're usually going to pitch it to producers or a production company. This is a couple people with like a deal that get paid to just listen to pitches, like them, hone them in, and take those pitches to the next level. A lot of times in this day and age, there's also something called an IP attached to it, or an intellectual property, like a comic book or a book, something that's already sort of been proven in another market. It could also be, by the way, a successful YouTube channel. So that's something really big to think about. So if you already have a brand on YouTube, you could take that and pitch it to producers. Also, sometimes agents come into play, and you know, all that big time stuff. We're getting ahead of ourselves. All right, so you pitch it to a producer, and let's say the producer loves it. Then you're gonna pitch it to a studio. And then after the studio, you're gonna pitch it to a network. So there's a whole chain of things. TV shows are made by studios and networks. Basically, think of the studio kind of as like the bank. They're gonna front you the money to make your show. So think about it this way: the studio fronts the money. So the studio is like the bank. They're gonna front you the money. They're gonna give you the money to help start developing your show. The network backs the studio up until an agreed amount of money. If you spend more money than the network has agreed on, then the studio has to cover that difference, and that happens all the time. So networks make their money by essentially renting the show from the studio. The studio owns the show. The network rents it for a certain amount of time and puts it on the air, and they make their money from advertisement sales. Unless you're Netflix or HBO, which are also kind of in the network category, they make their money by charging a user fee. It's a subscription-based model, if you will. The studio makes their money by selling the show. So they've already sold the show to the network and made that deal, but it's for a limited amount of time. So you've heard of this thing called syndication. After that time period is up, they can then sell that show maybe to other networks or to like other markets, things like that. There's also international markets. So the studio can, and this is like the biggest thing right now. You have to pay a licensing fee. Like if you're Netflix, you have to pay the studio a licensing fee for every country that show is going to be in. So international pre-sales, like selling these shows to markets internationally up front, is like one of the #1 ways that studios make their money. And just to give you guys some examples, so when I worked on Iron Fist, Marvel was the studio, Netflix was the network. When I work on Timeless right now, even though we're at the Paramount lot, we're just renting this lot to shoot here, the actual studio is Sony. It's Sony Studios for NBC, which is the network. So Sony is basically fronting the money to make the show. NBC's buying it off of Sony. They're going to put it on NBC and they're going to air it a bunch. But then after a while, like, I don't know if you noticed, but season 1 of Timeless just came out on Hulu. So that Hulu money goes back to Sony. So that's how Sony starts making their money on this show. All these different deals and international distribution and all these sales and stuff like that. So those are some real world examples. All right, so you've gotten through all the pitches all the way up to the network and they love your show. Now what? First, they're going to give you notes on your pitch, like up the wazoo, until you hone it down, and you're going to keep pitching. Then they're going to give you a little bit of money to do an outline, and you're going to outline forever, and you're going to keep submitting outlines over and over and over and over again. And then once they agree on the outline, they're going to give you a little bit of money and give you something called a script order, and they're going to pick up your script. Then you're going to keep writing that script forever until everyone's happy with the script. And like anywhere along this chain, they can like cut it short and say, nah, we're not interested anymore. But you keep going. So you get that script order, you get the outline order, then the script order, and you just keep going until eventually, you guessed it, you get the pilot order. Once the script is ratified, they buy the script, they love it, and you go into pilot production. And that is when you start hiring your cast and your crew, and you make something called a pilot. It's a little bit different in this day and age. There's a lot of different scenarios for pilots. Traditionally, you make the pilot, they watch the pilot, they like it, and by they I mean the network and the studio. They like it or they don't like it, and you could have actually made a first episode of something and it could never see the air. In fact, I did the original Lock and Key pilot, which was like a huge pilot directed by Mark Romanek, which we thought for sure was gonna go to air on Fox, but they didn't pick it up. So no one's ever seen it. That's a really quick and dirty explanation of studios and networks and getting your pilot through this whole chain of pilot stuff, but how do you even get there? You're sitting somewhere not in Los Angeles, in the middle of the country, wherever you are, and you have an idea and you want to get it made. How do you even start? Well, I'm a big believer in, number one, diversifying your portfolio. Just like any banker is going to tell you, don't invest in one thing. It's going to be hard to swallow. I know that you've got the perfect project and yours is the one, but trust me, don't invest in one thing. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're a writer, write. Obviously, you've got to write. Write teleplays, write short stories, write screenplays, write everything, and submit to every contest out there. And before you say contests don't matter, guess what? I did a show called Extant starring Halle Berry, and the writer of that show was a guy named Mickey Fisher, who broke all the rules of everything I just told you by writing a script, submitting it to a contest, coming in not first, but second place. One of the judges in that contest really liked his script, took it to Amblin Entertainment, who are people that I've worked for a lot. They're great. That's Steven Spielberg's company. And they loved it. And they took it out there and they created this huge like bidding war over it. They got Halle Berry attached and CBS attached, and they, you know, he went from not being the creator of a show to being the creator of a show in the matter of months. And he even has a second show that I worked on called Reverie that's coming out later this summer. So yes, submit to contests with teleplays. The other thing is you have to move to a place where this stuff is made. I hate to say it, but you have to be close to it and you have to work in it. So move to Los Angeles, move to Atlanta, move to New York, move to Vancouver, move to Toronto. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you want to work in this business, you have to be in the places where this stuff is made. Why? Because you have to get a job in it. You have to hustle, 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 and get a job working in the business and stay close to it in proximity. I mean, look at me. For the last 10 years, I've stayed in the business. I've stayed really close to it, and I've made myself a really successful visual effects supervisor and someone that people rely on, and I have like just a ton of contacts. Like I've just made a ton of contacts doing this. And by the way, I used to think it really sucked like to be an assistant and all and PA or any of that stuff, but I work a lot closely with the PAs, and they're great people and they work hard, and I've seen so many PAs and writers assistants come up and become successful writers, directors, and creators of things. It really does happen, guys. You just have to persevere. Everyone's told it 2 million times, but believe me, you can do it. The most important thing is that you have to create. And I'm wearing the hat that says create for this reason. Create is an active verb, to create, to make something. You can't just sit around talking about creating stuff, so you have to do it. You have to write and you have to make content. Maybe it's not writing, maybe it's directing, maybe it's making YouTube videos, whatever it is, you have to do it. So that leads me to my last point, which is actually making YouTube content. I'm making YouTube content because I love it. I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for fame. I'm doing this because it helps me fulfill something inside my soul. Hopefully you have that, a little bit of that too. This is a great time to be a filmmaker. The equipment is more accessible and simpler than ever. Believe me, we did not have this stuff 10 years ago when I was in film school. You can make such amazing stuff right now yourself. Go out there, make a YouTube channel, put up content. It may suck, it may be great, but you're doing it, and that's all that matters. And by the way, even if it sucks, the more you do it, the better and better it's gonna get, and then it's not gonna suck, and one day you're gonna go, oh my God, like, I really can make movies. And I gotta tell you, the bonus is, as you make that content, as you build a following, no matter how big or how small, if you kind of hit onto something, if you hit onto like a nugget of an IP that I was talking about in the beginning, an intellectual property, if you hit on like some kind of IP, like if you create a character and that character gets even like the slightest bit of popularity, that is now an IP that you can sell to the networks and the studios and the producers, because they like to see stuff that's already kind of been proven and already been made. So, I mean, look, if you're a comic book author, make comic books. If you can draw stuff and put it on the internet. The bottom line is, like, you have to do stuff. All right, well, that is it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the business. If you guys like this video, let me know. My next video is going to be about the differences between prep, production, and post, and I'm really gonna get granular. I'm really gonna get into this stuff. So if it's boring, you know, skip it. I'll have more tech tutorials and stuff coming out for sure. But if you want kind of a primer, you know, save these videos and consider it like a little classroom. All right, guys, I gotta get back to work. It's been fun. I hope you guys learned something.